Welcome to DAExMachiNation. Join us as we explore the mysteries of this world. Cryptids, monsters, macabre tales, and horror stories abound. Could they be true? Are monsters real?
Good evening, folks, and thank you all for joining us another edition of DAExMachiNation. In the house tonight, you guys just got me and Mr. Robbie Rip Rains. Unfortunately, Steve has to work tonight, and Doc is out on a date night with the missus. So we hope he has a good time, and Steve stays safe while he's at work. So tonight you will have the two idiots from the Redneck Reading Association. Hopefully, we'll be able to keep you all entertained. Robbie, how the hell are you, brother?
Well, other than this, I'm okay.
Yeah, you guys got spanked a little bit today.
Yeah, it was Texas though, so I mean,
Yeah.
We didn't get slaughtered. We made it a competitive game, so
At least it was a good game.
yeah. I mean, I hate to lose regardless, but I'd rather go out there and make a good showing and lose by, 14 points or so, whatever it was, than go out there and just
Get blown out.
Get blown out. So,
well, there's something else though other than football. I understand. Congratulations are in order for you there.
Yep.
Your baby girl has accepted a invitation for her hand in marriage, and you guys will be planning some nuptials before too long. And congratulations, y'all have seen Taylor on the show. His daughter Taylor got engaged today.
Yep. We adding one to the family. And he actually did it the right way. He came and asked me for permission.
That is awesome. You don't see that very often. And one of our audience members, Trisha, had a birthday today. So happy birthday to Trisha.
Happy birthday, Trisha.
Ms. Lene says, congratulations, Papa Robbie.
Not yet.
Yeah, it isn't one of them situations, but
No.
But happy birthday to Trisha and congratulations to Robbie. Tomorrow night we will be back with our regularly scheduled Redneck Reading Hour, and we will continue with Ragnarok Rising, the second part of Crucible. So before we get into tonight's show, I want to go ahead and just mention our affiliate tonight. I will put the link up real quick, and we're going to talk just a little bit about Ken Brock over at brockblades.com. Ken's been a friend of the show for a long time, and you guys have seen, well, Robbie's got one, and I've got one. We got called the Skane Do. Ken's blades, just like with Robbie's, are all handmade in the shop behind his house. And I don't know about y'all, but I don't feel any issue with having more than one knife company as a sponsor because I own more than one knife. There's not any one brand I own just one of. But I got a new one I want to show off for those of you guys who have read or heard us read Dog Soldier with Will Gray Eagle that was set in Afghanistan. I talked about Will Gray Eagle's Ardennes knife, and this is it. This is the Ardennes. You can see the Brock name on it, and this is for Roxanne. This is the Gray Eagle edition of the Ardennes knife, and it is absolutely stunningly beautiful. So check out brockblades.com. Let him know we sent you, and he does custom orders, or you can select from things he already has on the website. It comes with a beautiful Kydex sheath for it, and like I said, this thing is wicked sharp. And these are not meant to be set on a wall and displayed, although you could. I mean, they are pretty much works of art, but they're functional works of art. And that one's going to be going into the field with me here real soon. So check out brockblades.com. Don't forget to use discount code CRYPTID10 for 10% off your order. And if you design a custom blade and you still want to get your 10%, make sure you mention you heard about it from here on the show when you send him the instructions. Let him know you heard about him here on DAExMachiNation, and he'll make sure you get your 10% off. Well, now, that was a bit of a mouthful, and man, I really like this Ardennes blade. Man, it feels good in the hand. It really does. But it is also like insanely sharp. which is the best kind of knife to have.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, a dull knife don't do anybody any good. In fact, you're probably going to get cut worse from a dull knife trying to cut something than you are a sharp one.
Yep. That's all I've been doing all day besides watching Clemson is being out there in the garage working on two certain fellers' knives.
And tomorrow night, y'all get a chance to hear more about those and see those. He'll have the they're not blanks anymore. He's progressed beyond that. He's got the actual working rudimentary part of the blades done, and no handles or anything like that. He's still grinding out the blades, but we'll show those off tomorrow night.
So they'll be a little bit further along than they are when you just saw them backstage too.
Northwood says, "Be careful with sharp blades, or you might find red paint all over everything you're working on." You ain't wrong, and that's why you need one of Doc's kits handy.
This guy,
Yeah. You and me both, buddy. You and me both. But let's kind of kick this pig, shall we?
let's do it.
What we mentioned specifically was that we were going to be detailing the story behind the 1980 hit movie, The Final Countdown, which for those of you who haven't seen it, it had Kirk Douglas and a bunch of big stars of the day. I think Martin Sheen was in it, and there were a bunch of other big names.
Yeah, Martin Sheen, Kirk Douglas, the guy who played Yanni in Raidon and Tabby was in it. A lot of famous Japanese,
a lot of pretty big name actors of the day. Yeah. It was a really good movie. Has a pretty big cult following because it's still a great sci-fi film to watch. But the premise of the movie is while doing maneuvers at sea, the USS Nimitz encounters a strange storm and ends up sailing into an electrical vortex, and it sends them back to 1940, the year for their Pearl Harbor was attacked.
Yeah,
was that 42 or 41?
42, I think, because the war had already started. But
yeah, well, they went back in time to the day before Pearl Harbor.
Yeah,
which was December 7th, 1942, I believe. I'm sure somebody in the audience knows. 41. 2 or 3 people chiming in with 41. So yeah, it was December. It's sending them back to December 6th, 1941, and there's a couple of interesting scenes where you get to see Japanese Zeros go up against a couple of F-14 Tomcats, which in my opinion, still the greatest fighter jet of all time. Just a badass plane, but it's
that's
really
one of the greatest scenes in cinematic history is when them two Tomcats splash them Zeros.
Yep, they sure do. But then you get to face the dilemma: is the Nimitz going to get involved? Are they going to let the Japanese bomb Pearl Harbor? Because one nuclear carrier back then could have taken out the entire Japanese fleet, probably without much issue. I mean, especially long range like Exocet missiles that are designed to sink ships from a distance. The Japanese wouldn't have stood a chance.
I love Kirk Douglas's take on that, because you're right. He had the dilemma: do we get involved? Do we change history? Do we do this? Do we do that? He's that simple line: we're United States naval warship. We're sworn to protect the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. It don't matter what time of the year, what time of the world. We have an obligation, and basically he was just looking at it from a duty standpoint of, I don't care that this has already happened. We're here. We're going to do what we got to do because that's what we're supposed to do. I've always loved that line.
Roxanne wants me to show Sonia the knife. Sonia, this is the Ardennes knife that Will Gray Eagle carries in Dog Soldier. And on the back side of the blade, you will see a familiar name. That's the Ardennes. Exactly like the one Will carries in Dog Soldier. And anyway, back to the Final Countdown. Then the real dilemma becomes: do they get involved? But before they can commit to helping, the storm returns and returns the Nimitz to its own time. If you have not seen the movie, you really need to. But what a lot of people don't know is that there are two incidents in history that tie in to what happened with the USS Nimitz in that movie. The real incident that happened to the Nimitz was actually in 1963, not aboard Nimitz, but aboard the USS Enterprise. And we'll get to that in a minute. What we're going to talk about first is the original experiment. In 1943, in Philadelphia Harbor, they were using notes from Nikola Tesla. A crew of scientists boarded the USS Eldridge. They outfitted Eldridge with special equipment that was designed to using Tesla's own theories to make the ship invisible to radar. That was the entire plan. They hooked up all the equipment, put a skeleton crew on Eldridge, and triggered the equipment. USS Eldridge disappeared from Philadelphia Harbor. Not just from radar, it disappeared. Minutes later, it was logged as being sighted in the harbor in Norfolk, Virginia, which is 300 or 400 miles away. Impossible for a ship of that day or a ship of today to travel that distance in a matter of minutes. But then the harbor master in Norfolk no longer saw it, said he logged it as being gone from the harbor, and it reappeared in Philadelphia Harbor. And when she did, according to the stories, there were crew members from the Eldridge who were fused into bulkheads. Some were disfigured, some were charred, and some people were literally still alive, fused into the metal of the bulkheads. Now, the story was first broken by a series of letters that were mailed to prominent individuals of the day and to the press from a guy claiming to be Carlos Allende. And well, what we come to find out later that Carlos Allende didn't exist. The guy behind the actual letters was a guy by the name of Charles Allen. And Allen apparently didn't want to use his real name. He was a merchant marine on a merchant ship in the harbor when the Philadelphia experiment was conducted. The Navy, still to this day, does not denies it ever happened, but there are still eyewitnesses that came forward. And strange things were reported after the Eldridge reappeared, like some of the sailors from the ship while they were on liberty after the incident were in a bar right there in Philadelphia, got into a fist fight with another group of sailors, and people in the bar reported seeing the men appear and disappear before their eyes. While they were fighting, they would just phase out and then phase back in, like residual electromagnetic damage to these sailors. So there's a lot more to this than meets the eye. It is not just a simple case of some guy wrote a letter to the Tribune and this story grew from that. That may have what uncorked this, but there have been eyewitnesses come forward from other ships. The Navy's released documents after documents denying it, but when the Navy denies something this vehemently, it really makes me think there's something to it. Now, if the Navy had just said, no, that's just bull crap and went on about their business, I might have just thought that's the case. But the fact that they have gone to such great lengths to try to make this story, they even got rid of the Eldridge, which you would think they would have taken it out, scuttled it, and sunk it from the damage done to the ship. But they didn't. They decommissioned it and it disappeared. The Eldridge reappeared 40 years later in a scrapyard in Greece, and it's still registered high on the EM spectrum. After 40 years, it was still registering electromagnetic energy discharge, heavy discharge.
There's a lot of weird stuff surrounds that.
So I personally believe this incident happened. What about you, Robbie?
Well, it's like we always say that all these things that we hear has got some kind of grain of truth to them somewhere. And
well, they made a movie about the Philadelphia experiment shortly after the Final Countdown came out. The movie was called The Philadelphia Experiment. I believe it came out in 84 or 85.
Yeah.
It was a pretty good movie. It had Michael Pare in it, and it featured a lot of these stories about what happened to the Eldridge.
So I think those two movies were kind of like, what we've talked about, soft disclosure type of stuff. I think that because, the final countdown kind of hits the ship disappearing angle, while the Philadelphia experiment kind of gets into the science of what maybe caused the storm that caused the ship to disappear, which I don't know if it was an actual storm that they caused or if they actually sent the ship, but
Personally, I think what really happened was they created the vortex. I don't think they intended to. I think they did, but they did create it. Roxanne says, "Didn't the ship show itself in two places at the same time?" That is correct. The Eldridge was in the harbor at Philadelphia, was registered in the harbor at Philadelphia by the harbor master, and then minutes later was documented by the harbor master in Norfolk, Virginia, as being in the harbor there as well. So, Philadelphia experiment, the Eldridge was in two places at once, essentially. Arlen Neal says, years ago, Art Bell interviewed a man claiming to be from the ship. He says he was the main man who helped build the ship. Wouldn't surprise me. I mean, Art Bell had a lot of great guests over the years. But I really think, Little Patty says, did you know they had a Philadelphia experiment too? Yes, I watched that. Had Michael Pare in it as well. Pretty good movie. But it was just based upon the event. It wasn't really talking about the actual event itself. Kevin Bode says, seems like some of the scrap metal could make its way into the equipment for the wild hunt. There's an interesting thought. I really honestly believe that the Philadelphia experiment happened. Thank you, Larry. Appreciate it, man.
Thanks, man.
Larry Sharp gave us a super chat. Thank you, Larry. Merry Christmas to you too, dude. Joshua Dalton says, is there a crew list for the ship available? Not that I've been able to find. Supposedly it was down for maintenance when the experiment was done, and a hand-selected crew was on board at the time. But I can't honestly tell you any of the names of the crew because I've never found a document actually giving the crew list. Now there's a crew list of the Eldridge when it was on active duty. That's easy to find, but you cannot find for the actual date of the Philadelphia experiment.
Well, they just had a crew. They just had a skeleton crew. Just enough crew to keep the ship operational too, right? They didn't have a full working crew at that time.
Right. It was just a working crew, yeah, skeleton crew. Tammy Johnson said someone said the ship is hidden in Greece. I don't know how true that is. I watched a show on it. They actually found the Eldridge in a scrapyard in Greece. It's bizarre that they didn't just sink it or scrap it themselves. They didn't want it found. And if they'd sank it, even divers could go to it as long as they knew where it was sunk. So my thinking is they just tried to get rid of it, tried to hide it. Maybe because they needed to go back and study it later, or they weren't done with it. But they, instead of scuttling it or taking it out and blowing it up, they moved it around until finally, I think it was like in the last decade, it was spotted in that scrapyard in Greece.
Well, if the Navy gets rid of a ship and there's nothing, I mean, like you said, they'll go out and scuttle it. I mean, they don't. When a ship gets decommissioned and it's done, unless they're going to make it like the Yorktown or the North Carolina or any of those ships that are going to be showpieces that people can come and walk on. If they're not destined for that and they're decommissioned and they're not going to be used, they're going to scuttle them and scrap them so nobody gets our technology. Right. They're not going to take the chance of those ships being, because some of our older ships like the Eldridge and things like that are still far more advanced than some of the stuff that some of these countries have right now. And they don't want that technology falling in other people's hands.
Right. Dr. 45 asked, 45120 says, has anyone seen the ship's log? The Navy has released a redacted copy of the Eldridge's log years ago, and I've seen it before. I actually had a copy of it in PDF at one point, but there is no mention whatsoever of the experiment.
Which means it was off the books, high level, exactly. Top secret stuff.
Yeah, Roxanne, that's true. That when the Eldridge reappeared, there were men who were some of them still alive, were actually like fused into the steel of the bulkheads. Arlen Neal says all the sailors that were affected by this ship were listed as died at sea. They were never discharged because they kept popping in and out of time. That's interesting. Yeah, the sailors that were in that bar fight kept phasing in and out, just disappearing before and multiple witnesses reported that. There was a bar full of people saw the fight. Kevin Bode says 3 of the 4 carriers my dad was on have been sunk. I wouldn't want to be on a carrier when she's going down. There's a lot of folks on a carrier. Camo Dad says the VA would say it's not service connected. You're probably right. But the interesting part about the Eldridge is to me is not just the fact that the Eldridge vanished for I think it was 8 minutes. She disappeared from Philadelphia Harbor and was logged as being seen by the harbor master in Norfolk, Virginia, which is I think 300 or 400 miles away, and then logged back into the harbor in Philadelphia. I think the really interesting part about that is that there was an unintended consequence. They didn't know what they were messing with. They were using Tesla's designs, thinking that they could cloak the ship from radar. The entire design was to hide the ship from radar. They didn't have any idea that it would make the ship disappear itself. And that's one of the things that I think our society would benefit from having public access to Tesla's notes. Because they classified him. As soon as Tesla died, the FBI seized all of his notes, and they are all still classified to this day. But he had a much better fundamental understanding of how electromagnetic energy works than any scientist we've had since, or at least have been publicly willing to admit. But
nobody's been able to look at him other than probably any scientist that the FBI has deemed fit and worthy to look at the notes. And they're probably not going to give it to anybody as smart as him anyway, because they don't want people taking that next step like he was doing.
Susan says, I wonder if they ripped a hole in time. I think that's exactly what they did. I think that is exactly what they did. Miss Neoma says, apparently a Lieutenant Morris K. Jessup as listed as the commanding officer. And that in and of itself is weird for a lieutenant to be in charge of a ship.
Yeah. Usually got to be, at least commander?
Usually it's a minimum commander to be placed in charge of a ship, especially one the size of the Eldridge. We're not talking about, a PT boat. We're talking a ship with a crew of a couple hundred.
Yeah, because that's high level command. That's not like squad or unit level. That's like high level stuff.
Miss Naoma says that's what I think it's linked to the Mandela effect, and that very well could be. We've had a lot of weird things happen, especially since CERN started cracking open gateways. But the Mandela effects seem to be getting stranger. Dr. 45-120 says the aircraft carrier USS America stayed afloat after weeks of being a weapons target. Yeah, they built those carriers to last, and it was very tough to sink one. It still is. Roxanne says, I heard a theory that the military tried a second time. Yes, they did. And the crew that was on board was sworn to secrecy about it. And just so happened that my uncle was on Enterprise when it happened. And while he would not tell me a lot of the details, after a few beers one night, he did open up and tell me about the incident. But he wouldn't give me a lot of details. And he was an electrician's mate, which means he was there working on the electronics. He was one of the crew, and he got to meet a few, let's just say, scientists of German persuasion who immigrated to the United States at the end of a certain Second World War, including Dr. Werner von Braun. They were brought on board USS Enterprise in 1963 to try to recreate the experiment. And it was done at sea instead of in the harbor, so there would be less witnesses. And I believe that is where the final countdown comes from. Something happened to Enterprise, but my uncle would never. He went to his grave not not ever telling me. And I asked him many times. We had a lot of conversations about this. In fact, after the next day after I'd plied him with beer, when I asked him more about it, he's like, "How much did I tell you?" And I told him, he's like, "Oh, I already said more than I should." And he had been out of the military since the 70s, and he was still sticking to that oath. So I don't know what they said to those boys, but it must have been pretty serious for him to not want to break that, 50 years later almost. Well, 30 years later. Um, Ultra Mega Man says, my grandfather had a few stories about a couple different circumstances he was in. Yeah, there are a lot of military experiments done over the years that I guarantee you, if the public knew about, would open a lot of eyes.
Well, it's just how many of these movies about stuff like this you watch, especially like the stuff we watched when we were kids before we started thinking and looking into the stuff like we do now.
Right.
Or
before we started questioning everything the government says.
I mean, the the movie Creature was a made for TV movie based on Peter Benchley's book White Shark. That was about military experiments. A lot of that, what we talked about with what they were doing with dolphins and things like that. There was a lot of that stuff in those books. But there are movies on top of movies on top of movies about stuff like this, whether it be experiment on animals, time travel. I mean, you could have turned, a couple of years ago, you could have turned Sci-Fi Channel on any given Saturday night and seen a movie about a military scientist sending a team of Navy SEALs back in time and fighting Tyrannosaurus Rexes and Velociraptors. I mean, there's hundreds of movies about that. It makes you wonder how much of that stuff really has actually happened.
Oh, I agree. I think more of it than we realize. Arlen Nielsen's had an uncle that worked at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. He went to his grave not talking about what he saw while working there. Either the men from that generation were made from a different cut of cloth, if you get my meaning, than modern people, or they just really threaten the crap out of those guys. Because I know, we've got people that will, years later will come forward and break a clearance and talk about stuff that happened when they were in the military now. But in the, after World War II up until about 1980, that was unheard of. It just didn't happen.
No, you might have one or two, but for the most part, honor was something, even if they disagreed. Even if they disagreed with what the military was doing, they still believed in the code and the oath that they took.
Right.
And they're like, it's the greater good. They know what they're doing. I'm not saying jack crap about it.
Exactly. Roxanne says heard there were two men below deck with a machine gun. They got scared and jumped ship. Then it goes into a weird rabbit hole. There were a number of crewmen that were just unaccounted for.
Well,
after the Philadelphia experiment was concluded, there were supposedly a good chunk of the crew that just didn't come back.
But just to talk about more about that mindset that these people, and it's why they had the mindset to go through some of these experiments they went through and keep their mouth shut. There were, if they couldn't get in and they were 4F'd, there were people who committed suicide because they couldn't make it in and go fight and help out.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like Naomi said. I mean, patriotism was a way of life. It's not like it is now. I mean,
Dr. 45120 has a good comment here. He says the Enterprise CVN 65 was a prime candidate for such an experiment. It was way overpowered with 8 nuclear reactors. And I was going to bring that up. I'm glad you said that, because my uncle said when Werner von Braun and his crew were on Enterprise, it's the only time he ever saw all of the reactors active at the same time. Whatever they were doing required a tremendous amount of power.
it's you know, you don't want to think things like that happen that paint our country, because I know as Americans we like to look at ourselves as the good guys, and we are the police force of the world.
Fortunately, yeah.
But there's things that go on in our government that you could probably categorize as pretty dark.
Oh, yeah.
Now, is some of it for the greater good, like we said earlier? Maybe. But is some of it just because we can? I watched a documentary the other day, and it was sort of clickbait, but not. It was, the title of it was Hitler's Jurassic Park. So I'm like, that's interesting. So you're thinking dinosaurs, but basically, his second or third, his master of the hunts. I can't remember what the guy's name was, but he was really high up in the Third Reich. He was a big time hunter.
Sounds like Goebbels.
That's it. I couldn't remember what his name was, but he commissioned these two brothers that were doctors in Germany, and they took over this little. When they took over Poland, there was a primeval forest that they had. It started with a B, but I can't remember how they pronounced it. But anyway, that their big goal was to make that. They wanted to turn that back, or go back in time, basically, and make a hunting preserve like old Germania.
Was that I believe I remember the name of it. The Buchenwald?
That sounds about like it. It was spelled with a B, and it was pronounced something like that. But
I'm pretty sure it was Buchenwald.
Long story short, there's these ox that were that used to roam the forests of Germania. They were like head and shoulders bigger than anything we've got now, but they were real dangerous. They were vicious, and that was kind of like a rite of passage, apparently, for these German barbarians, was to go hunt these things with spears. Well, that was their vision, was to make. So they reverse engineered. They reverse bred animals to try to make these oxen again. But it was just because they wanted to have something to go hunt, not because it was something anybody needed or it filled a niche in the ecological. It was because, hey, we want to go back and we want to, be the pure Aryan race that we were once again, and we need to have these big ox down that are so dangerous that we can go hunt them with spears. And they spent 15 years on this project.
Kay Bauer says Robbie was the SS werewolves, not just a descriptive name of the group.
Yes and no.
It depends on who you listen to.
Yeah. There was a group of SS that they called the werewolves. I think that was a cover for what was really there. Because there's plenty of stories.
They were part of a group called the Ahnenerbe. Mm-hmm. And the Ahnenerbe were tasked with finding and utilizing occult weapons to use for the Third Reich.
That's basically what Hydra was based on from the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Yep, that was the Ahnenerbe.
Mm-hmm. And so, but that's what.
I was wrong. Miss Name will point out Buchenwald was a concentration camp. I knew that was why name sound familiar. Ray J says Reichsjägerhof Ronmitten was the hunting preserve.
Nope, that's not. It was with a B.
It was with a B. Well, yep. If you can find it again, we'll share it. Maybe we'll do a show on it. Chris Burkhart says, like the line in Jurassic Park, you're so busy trying to see if you could, you didn't stop and think if you should.
That is exactly it.
Miss Lene is right on the money. We're wanting to discuss the bizarre and the bizarre and strange instances where we're going to try to avoid any real world political discussions. Torsten says Balwitsa Forest is what you're thinking of, Robbie.
That's it.
I could not pronounce it.
Yeah, I don't know that, but that's
definitely
it.
Polish.
I knew I would know it if I saw it, but I told you it was a B. It was not
Bialowica. I can't speak Polish. So
I don't think that's how they were pronouncing it. But that is
Bialowica.
Yes, or something that sounds a lot closer.
Thank you, Torsten.
But that's it, because they went in and exterminated any of these. There were Jews that had villages in there. There were other people. So if they went in and found Jews, obviously they wouldn't run them out. They would do what they were doing, but they were running everybody else out, and they were doing it just to make this big hunting preserve, just so they could go in and fulfill their old legacy again. That's the best way to put it. They wanted to go and hunt these things with spears and be the German barbarians of old.
Torsten says he's German and he can't pronounce it either. I think it's Polish is why it's so hard to pronounce.
It was in Poland because that's what they talked about in the documentary is, and that's why it took so long, is because they didn't realize at first when when Russia was helping them out, they didn't realize that they were going to give Stalin all this land, because they had already picked this out. That's where everything was beforehand, and then it went over there. So until Germany turned on Russia and started fighting them in Poland and taking Poland from Russia, it couldn't happen. So that's why it took like 15 years, other than the actual breeding process too. But yes, or I think it was Hitler's Jurassic Park, maybe, but it was something. Hitler's Jurassic something. It might have been Monsters, but it's on YouTube. It was actually pretty good. I think it was like right at an hour. Like I said, kind of clickbait, because it's like it shows a picture of Hitler and and then it's got this like big park entrance with a big gate, and it's got a Tyrannosaurus Rex with a Nazi flag draped over it. And I'm like, ooh, that's interesting. But there was not really a whole lot of stuff about dinosaurs. It's all about these ox. But still, it was really interesting.
Look at this. Northwest Native Tracker says World War II grapevine rumor was that all the SS werewolves had old Nordic spells cast on them so they could shapeshift from a Teutonic spell book found in a castle. That would fall right in line with the Ulf Hednar. That would fall directly in line with the Norse Ulf Hednar. And Patricia Gambino says, my dad was in World War II and his brother worked on the Norfolk Naval Base, and he refused to talk about the Philadelphia experiment. I believe it did happen. I do too. And it was spotted by more than one person, but the harbor master actually put it in his log that the Eldridge was in Norfolk Harbor at that time. Y'all hit the like, share, and subscribe, please. We've got a pretty big crowd tonight. 172 people watching, and we've had 75 likes so far. If you guys are enjoying what you're watching, please hit that like button. Now, where things get fuzzy on the involvement of USS Enterprise is whether or not it actually went through a portal. That my information is limited because, like I said, my uncle's passed away now, and I cannot find any corroborating documentation on it. But I know my uncle's not the kind of guy that would make that crap up. And there is a listing that said Werner von Braun was on Enterprise in the early 60s. So that corroborates the story. But I can't find any mention of the experiment being repeated on Enterprise. However, the existence of the movie, The Final Countdown, other than the fact that it's on Nimitz instead of Enterprise, I really think somebody wrote a story, a fictionalized story based on the actual event. So I don't know exactly how much of that story is true, but I believe The Final Countdown is based on a real event.
Well, I mean, obviously parts of it are sensationalized. Like,
oh, absolutely, it has to.
We have no clue that it. I mean, I'm like you. I believe it happened, but we don't know unless this, like what you're saying, it was somebody who was actually on the ship that penned this story, and that's what actually happened. We have no way of knowing that they went back to right before Pearl Harbor was bombed and they were going to do all this stuff. So until we know where the source material actually came from, you just got to speculate that part was sensationalized by Hollywood.
Right.
But that goes
Patricia
back to that
Gambino.
patriotism thing. That was a big
Right.
thing back then, and it's a very patriotic movie.
Patricia Gambino says, was it Goring or Himmler that was big into the occult, even had a castle that housed occult objects? Himmler was actually, the castle is still there. It's Neuschwanstein Castle. They took over Neuschwanstein Castle, and at one time, the quote-unquote crypts or dungeons beneath Neuschwanstein were supposedly full of occult artifacts that they had gathered from all over the world.
Yeah. They went looking for any and everything. That's another thing that kind of lends to that point, or lends credence to what we've talked about what you see in Hollywood. These movies is not far off, or is not as far off as you would think.
A lot of those stories are probably just somebody wrote a fictionalized account of something that happened to them.
Because they definitely were looking for the Holy Grail. They're definitely looking for the Spear of Destiny. They were probably looking for stuff like I don't know that anything like the Tesseract was ever actually said to exist.
Looking for silver denarius coins.
True. And I'm sure that any kind of Norse or Egyptian or any of the major Roman, any of these things that claim to have artifacts of power, they were looking for them, because Hitler was doing anything and everything he could do, especially towards the end. He really poured into it towards the end of World War II. Because
what they call them, Wunderwaffen, wonder weapons.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, they were looking for everything from Thor's hammer to the Ark of the Covenant.
Mm-hmm.
And I really do believe, from some of the accounts in World War II of soldiers, U.S. soldiers and Allied soldiers who encountered what they described as werewolves on the battlefield, I think the Waffen SS really did do that. I think they found a way to create werewolves to fight for them. I don't think they had very many, but it wouldn't take but a handful to do a lot of damage. What do you think, Robbie?
I think it's like we've talked about. I don't think they created them. I think they found them and weaponized them, just like all these other things that we've used.
Sentinel's in the house. What's up, Sentinel?
No. Or six.
Killer.
Either way.
Sentinel 6 killer.
Killer 6.
Hey, who's to say that Sentinel isn't 6 killer?
Actually, he is. Or
things that make you go,
Well, I mean, he is, but
yeah,
he is.
Kay Bauer says Art Bell did a whole interview with someone in the Philadelphia experiment. I'd like to go back and find that interview, because some of those old Art Bell interviews are pretty awesome. But yeah, I have no doubt that both the Philadelphia experiment and that the for want of a better term, experiment that we're thinking relates to the final countdown, I think they're both very real incidents, and just there's too much reality backing around it to dismiss it outright. Too much disinformation was put out. Too much effort was put into to try to cover the conspiracy. And I think the reason that what was his name? Charles Allen. Let me make sure. Yeah, Carl Allen, not Charles Allen. Carl Allen. I think the reason that he wrote the letters, the initial letters, blowing the whistle on the Philadelphia experiment under the name Carlos Allende, was because he didn't want to get caught. Well, I think he knew using his real name would likely get him some jail time.
I'm not saying he knew what was going to happen to him if he did.
Yeah. And they did. While they didn't put him in jail, they spent about 30 years trying to make him look like an idiot. They did everything under the power to discredit the guy. Why not just say that didn't happen and move on and let the guy sound like an idiot on his own? Why would the Department of the Navy go to great lengths to make this guy look like?
Well, it's just like you said, how many times they went to, went and said, "No, no, 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 this didn't happen," instead of just saying BS and going on about their business.
Yeah, when that would have worked better.
Yeah.
If they didn't have anything to hide and just said, "No, he's full of crap, he's crazy," and then gave him no more attention, eventually people would have went, "Okay, there's something to him being just crazy," because they're not even arguing with him about it. But
Yeah.
the Navy went way out of their way to make him look crazy.
What's that they always say? Guilty dog always hollers.
Damn right. So I firmly believe that both the Philadelphia experiment and as it connects to what was done on Enterprise in '63, I think there was either continuations of the same experiment or a new experiment based on the old notes. Because in 1943, when they tried that with the Eldridge, we didn't have Werner von Braun and all of those top Nazi scientists. When they brought them over, I can't remember the name of the operation. Robbie, what was the name of that operation at the end of World War II, where they basically, between the United States, England, and Russia, we were grabbing up scientists and bringing them in just as fast as we could bring them?
I was going to say Market Garden until you said that, but that's not it.
Paperclip. Jay Freiberg's Operation Paperclip.
Yep, that was it.
Yep. Yeah, it's when we I don't even know how many we grabbed. But it was a bunch, and Werner von Braun was one of them. Werner von Braun helped put us on the moon.
Yeah, I think we got the best of the bunch because we probably grabbed him first, and it was like, okay, we got him. Just get whoever else you can get.
Werner von Braun and Einstein were the two best scientists Germany ever produced, and we managed to get both of them.
Now, they may mention him in passing in Oppenheimer. Have you seen that one yet?
No, yeah, I've seen
it. They actually have Einstein in that movie. Was Einstein actually in America and around Oppenheimer when they were building the bomb? Because I was just wondering if that was.
I think Einstein died before then.
Because it was. In the movie, they had him like right when they were getting ready to start everything. It was before they went out to the compound or the town that they ended up building.
Well, Einstein died in 1955, so he would have been around when they were building the bomb.
Yep. Because remember, he talked to him a couple times because he kind of figured that I can't remember the name of the character that Johnny Depp, Robert Downey Jr. was playing, but
I can't either.
But he kind of warned him about him. But I think they mentioned von Braun in that little interaction there too. That's actually a really good movie. It was pretty. I mean, obviously there was stuff liberties they took, but that was pretty spot on about that whole thing.
Yeah, James Luttrell says the Montauk Project was a follow-up to the Philadelphia experiment. I'm gonna consult the Googles on that.
Got to consult the Googles.
Well, it's already piqued my interest because Wikipedia calls it a conspiracy theory. So I'm already on board on that because conspiracy theories have all been moved to current events lately. This theory alleges that there were a series of United States government projects conducted at Camp Hero or Montauk Air Force Station in Montauk, New York, for the purposes of developing psychological warfare techniques and exotic research, including time travel. The story of the Montauk Project originated in the Montauk Project series of books by Preston Nichols, which intermixes those stories with those about the Bulgarian experiment. And the Montauk Project information has been circulating since the early 80s.
Yeah.
So yeah, if it was an offshoot of time travel, if they were probably trying to build on what happened with the Philadelphia experiment, because that was an unintended consequence. Like I said, Philadelphia experiment, their entire intent was to try to make those ships invisible from radar. and they got way more than they bargained for.
So they were trying, and obviously the war was, just kicking off at that point. So the obvious, let's make ships invisible, goes without saying. They were trying to make them invisible to radar to gain the advantage in naval combat, because that's really, I mean, that's like a game changer.
Hey, you want to hear something? One of those just oddly coincidental
Sure.
things.
I love oddly coincidental things.
Here's one of those things that just kind of make you go, strangely enough, the Philadelphia experiment and Nikola Tesla's death are the same year. He died just a few months before the Philadelphia experiment.
Wow.
Sounds like they tried something they found in his notes when he died. Because as soon as he died, the FBI came in and seized everything in his house.
I bet you anything they kind of had suspicions of what he was working on, and they already had stuff in plan or in motion. And then when he died and they seized all his stuff, they're like, yeah, here we go. Put this here, put that there, plug that in here, and let's go.
Just Ryan said Tesla was murdered. Well, Tesla was exhibiting some odd behavior before he died. I mean, he's become very paranoid and then died kind of under mysterious circumstances. I agree. I think Tesla was killed. But you want to know something? And here's another one of those weird coincidences. Guess who else died under almost the exact same circumstances? Started going crazy, got paranoid, and then died under odd circumstances. Howard Hughes, the Tony Stark of his age. Sounds almost like they both got the same poison. Killed him over time, drove him crazy.
Yeah.
What are the odds two men that freaking brilliant would both become ultra paranoid and go around the bend?
I mean,
Roxanne says, supposedly the man who headed up the Philadelphia project also headed up the Montauk project after that. I'm not shocked. And I really think they tried it again once they had Werner von Braun and the others, and they thought they had the Werner von Braun and the other scientists. I think they tried it again when they thought they had a better understanding of Tesla's notes. And that's why they tried it on a much bigger scale on an aircraft carrier with 8 nuclear reactors, something that could power it. Green Duet says, hi, everyone. Sorry I'm late. Had a Wolverine problem. Hugh Jackman or the actual creature?
Sometimes the third class slips. I started to say splits, but it slips.
There we go. James Luttrell says Tesla was originally on board with the Philadelphia experiment. He pulled out and took his research. And then mysteriously, the same year he dies, they suddenly go forward with it because they had his notes again. It's his actual animal. What do you think? Does that make sense?
It makes 100.
Tesla pulls out of the experiment and takes his notes and leaves, and suddenly Tesla's dead. And now they've got the notes again.
Well, what year did he leave the experiment? Did he die the same year he left, or did he leave?
He died in January of 43, and they tried it in October of 43.
Yeah, I'd say he was Epstein.
Yeah, I think he refused to help them do it, and they killed him. And then took his notes and did it anyway.
For as eccentric as they say he was, I believe he legitimately wanted to help people. He wanted free energy. He wanted people to survive and thrive.
Right.
And I guarantee you he was out there helping them, and it was on the premise of, okay, we're going to help people, and then he found out that they weren't doing it the way
they weren't doing it to help people.
Yeah,
they're weaponizing.
And he was like, okay, I'm done. You know.
Yeah, Sonia says, I mean, sus, definitely. Patricia Gambino says maybe it was Tesla who warned them not to try the experiment. That's probably why he quit the project. Probably said, this is too dangerous. You can't do this. And lo and behold, 9 months after he passes away and they've seized his notes, there goes the Philadelphia experiment.
Yep. It just, when you start stacking things, it's like we've talked about before. When you pull a car over, and that car's got a couple of air fresheners, not too big a deal. But that same car's got a couple of air fresheners. It's got 500 takeout bags in the back. That's a rental car. It's got luggage in it. You start adding all these things up, the totality of the circumstances, things just start adding up, and it goes from being something that you can say, well, that's just a coincidence, to saying, I don't think that's a coincidence. Yeah, but a clue.
Yeah, Wyatt is dead on.
Yeah. Dum, 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 dum.
So, just looking like a paranoid, conspiracy theorist, drawing room, we start connecting these dots. We start seeing a lot of crisscrosses where these stories are intersecting.
What I thought your writing room looked like.
No, that's just the inside of my brain. But when we start looking at the bringing Operation Paperclip, bringing all these scientists over with the Philadelphia experiment and the incident that happened on Enterprise, which we believe is the basis from the final countdown. Then we've got the death of Nikola Tesla and the use of his notes for the Philadelphia experiment. These all intersect, and it's kind of terrifying once you start looking at the bigger picture, because any one of these incidents all by themselves can just be ignored. But when you start finding all the connecting points, it really lends a lot of credibility to not only this being happened, but this having happened being completely covered up. Good night, Miss Naoma.
Not Naoma. I mean, what else? What else justifies it? What else answers it? What else explains it? I mean, is it?
Militant Wing says, is there a possible Bermuda Triangle connection? Many have said that. I don't know, but I know that Tesla had studied the phenomenon of the Bermuda Triangle, and they believe that it is an electromagnetic vortex.
I think that's either, maybe that's, I don't want to say because I don't know if they were close enough to say use that as a natural power source, but I think that they could probably use that as a scapegoat, because so many things get blamed on the Bermuda Triangle all the time.
Look at this. James Luttrell just pointed this out. Philadelphia experiment happened in 1943, Enterprise in 63, Montauk in 83. Every 20 years they try it again. That means something happened in 03 and probably 23 that we don't know about.
Yeah.
So what happened in 03? When did CERN open its gate the first time?
That'd be a good question for the Googles.
That's what I'm doing now.
Little Patty wants to know how old Tesla was when he died. Do you know off the top of your head?
I still got that pulled up. He was born in 1856 and died in 1943, so he was 86. Dude. CERN opened its first portal October 10th, 2023. The Philadelphia experiment was October 28th, 1943. Almost to the day.
Why do I have a Europe song playing in my head right now?
So what happened in... Okay. I'm going to play with the Googles for a second.
That, I mean, there we go again. You got 43. 63. 83. Really? 23. Patricia said she thinks that CERN's just an offshoot of the Philadelphia experiment. Ooh, I know that look. What?
It's big brain time. You know, you went earlier. You're really going to do it now.
Yeah, because I don't have a big brain. So
in 2003, the Human Genome Project was completed.
Well,
so we've got a major scientific breakthrough almost to the date every 20 years over the last 60 years. 70 years.
Yep, ED.
Well, from 43 to 2023 is 80 years. I'm sorry, Mom. I can't math tonight. This is blowing my mind almost as much as us making the connection with all the amount of undeveloped parkland and everything the other night.
And the Antarctic and Atlantis connection. We're starting to do a lot of dot connecting here over the past month or so.
Okay, for the official record, Robbie and I do not plan to disappear anytime soon.
Yes, if we do, come check. This is for entertainment purposes.
We have for entertainment purposes only.
Anybody listening out there with this color on?
Uh, 2003 was also the year we lost the Space Shuttle Columbia.
Somebody, what about going back? Was there anything before 40 or 20 years before 43?
Let's take a look. That would be 1923.
Mm-hmm.
First transatlantic radio broadcast. Insulin becomes widely available. Oh, dude.
Did you find something?
Yeah. 1923 was the year they opened King Tut's tomb. And we were just talking about Egyptian batteries and the Antarctica connection.
Mm-hmm.
How the Egyptians used, what is it? Electromagnetic energy.
Did we just connect Antarctica, Atlantis, CERN, the Philadelphia experiment, the final countdown, Tesla's death,
and the Philadelphia experiment?
I mean, did we just connect the dots on all that?
We just connected a lot of dots.
I'm just for entertainment purposes only.
Uh,
Just curious.
Rhonda Montpettit says, I missed the undeveloped land convo. Please summarize. The show we had the other night, we were talking about, the possible use of national parks to hide cryptids. And we'd been discussing for about almost 2 years now,
About 2 years.
how there's over 88 million acres of national parks that's set aside. It's land we're not allowed to develop, and in a lot of places still not allowed access to. But we didn't factor in all the land that is undeveloped and controlled by the government.
And we've
Meaning
always
Bureau
said,
of Land Management, national parks, national forests, all of that. When we factored all that in, it came up to almost 1 billion square acres.
yeah, and we've always said that the national parks we were talking about didn't count all that, but we just never thought to go look and say,
Didn't take it to the next step.
So we did the other night, and we were all three like, I mean, there's more land protected by all that in the United States than we could probably fit a couple of countries inside that.
Oh yeah, well, most of Europe.
Yeah, and like we said, if you factor, if you look at all of North America and add Canada in on that, it goes way up.
I was looking at what General Dalton was saying about possible J. Edgar Hoover, but I'm not seeing how any of that lines up just at the moment. I'll have to do some more digging. Dr. 45120 says we need a roadmap to keep all these connections straight. You ain't wrong.
And all this kind of started when we started talking about the Teddy Roosevelt thing, because that's when we started looking into how much land was there. And we started looking at that and like, well, look at Antarctica. Look at how. Then we started looking into Antarctica. We started looking at the Pure Rice map. We started looking at making the connections with when you found that other map. And William sent you the message. Hey, there's Bigfoot and Dogman type creatures in the margins. And we started looking at all that. I mean, things just kind of started falling into place.
When we tripped the dominoes, they started falling. CD Squatcher says in 2023, they used a powerful laser to knock lightning strikes off their path.
Well, weather control.
Yeah, weather control
patented thing by the U.S. government.
Numerous patents. That's what HAARP was all about.
Yeah.
Was controlling weather. And they dismantled HAARP for something better.
Or worse.
Worse probably for us. CD Squatcher says also in 2023, put that up there. DeepMind's new AI can predict whether a genetic mutation is likely to cause disease.
Well,
Kevin Bode says, when were the fires in Hawaii? 2023, I think.
Yep. I believe that was the date, or the year, rather. Okay, let's go back a notch. You remember when we had our show on CWD?
Yeah.
When did all that really start coming into effect?
Chronic wasting?
Uh-huh.
Well, in the last couple of decades. I mean, you never heard about it when I was a kid.
And
it was not something we even had to worry about.
And remember the idea that I kind of spitballed to you and Doc about what if this is something that's engineered? Because remember I told you about that book that they went after the Bigfoots that had rabies? And it was kind of implied in that book that the government had maybe infected them with that just to see what it would turn them into. So what if because we've showed pictures on here of deers eating squirrels and eating snakes and all this stuff. What if this stuff is?
What if chronic wasting disease was released on purpose? We know Lyme disease was. Lyme disease was created at the Montauk facility.
Montauk, there's a
Lyme
tie into
disease
what
was
we've been
created at the Montauk facility.
and there's a tie into what we've been
released.
talking about tonight from that year. So that's why I was asking about the year.
Let's take another layer of tinfoil on this sucker. Lyme disease is introduced, which makes people allergic to red meat. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got chronic wasting disease, which makes it very, very almost impossible to eat deer without testing them, right? Does that not sound like a couple of dominoes falling into place to control what kind of food we eat?
Yeah. That you have to get you can't go out and get your own food. You can't survive off the land.
Can't be self-sustaining anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And Josh Dalton was saying at least two of those major events happened while Hoover was the director of the FBI, and he was known to be a ruthless man and a blackmailer. Yeah, he kept files on literally everybody.
Yeah.
Patricia Gambino says, talk about weather control. Look what has happened to my hometown of Asheville, North Carolina. Never had a hurricane hit Asheville. Makes me wonder if CERN was powered up. Okay. The following statement is for entertainment purposes only. I want to say that right now because I know a channel that started talking about something similar to this and got demonetized. But again, this is for entertainment purposes only. You may form your own opinions. There's a company, a real world company called BlackRock. 3 days before the hurricane wiped out Asheville, BlackRock received the mining permits for the largest lithium deposit in the United States, which was under Asheville, North Carolina. And Asheville had been fighting them, not wanting the lithium mine there. Now Asheville's gone. Draw your own conclusions. I'm not saying anymore, but draw your own conclusions there. Things that'll make you go, in a hell of a hurry. Militant Wing says, yeah, CWD got bad here in Wisconsin. Also Lyme disease. Ironically, we have the USDA farm animal research lab. And that's what Montauk was supposedly an animal disease research center.
So really, any of the things that happened after, whether CWD or Lyme disease or any of that stuff came out 1, 2, 3, 4, even 5 years after that, doesn't really matter on the timeline is if it came from Montauk, which falls into the timeline of what we're talking about. So I just say that's another dot that's been connected.
Kevin Bode says there were floods in Spain recently, and they found lithium under the area.
Did you see what AD said about our?
That's quite interesting. There are a number of currently sitting politicians who have vested, and I mean highly vested interest in BlackRock. Not going to point out any names, not going to say what party they're a part of. You can do your own research on that. It's public record. But there are a number of people getting very wealthy, a number of people in Washington getting very wealthy off of BlackRock getting those mining rights. Josh Dalton says GDA just up the road in Southern Virginia, specifically Pennsylvania County, Virginia, has the largest uranium deposit in the USA. They found uranium in New Mexico when I was a kid down there, and they very quietly and very quickly kicked the Native Americans off that section of the reservation to mine that uranium. There was no public outcry made about it. Nothing. They didn't even admit it publicly happened. They just came in and did it. Tammy Johnson says August 2023 Maui fires produced by weirdly shaped straight line lightning. shall we say?
Mm-hmm.
We're not just throwing darts at, throwing wet pieces of tissue paper at the wall to see what sticks. These are all sticking, and the lines that are the connecting lines are kind of terrifying.
And here's the thing. I would be so happy to just be talking about cryptids. I would be so happy that if none of these lines and dots were connected and lines were brought together, because it's scary that all this stuff connects like it does.
Yeah.
I mean, it is what it is.
Miss LeMay. So if you want to donate to the DAExMachiNation, you might want to go to his channel after tonight. Yeah, because we may about to be getting demonetized.
Well, we did say it's for entertainment purposes only, though.
Patricia Gambino says, I live an hour east of Asheville, and guess what's being built here? A lithium plant. And I don't know if you folks are aware, but all the people that are talking about electric vehicles and how they how they're the big thing for the future, lithium mines are far worse for the environment than any fossil fuel. Lithium mines, just do an image search on lithium mines and take a look at them and see how those are done. They destroy the environment around them. Lithium is highly toxic.
Way worse than fracking could ever even possibly
think about. It makes fracking look like solar. He said she's taking notes. Yeah, I got nothing. Again, entertainment purposes only. You guys, all this information is publicly available. We're just connecting dots.
Yeah. Basically, we're just speaking what's already out there, if you will.
That's right. Dusty roads, the American dream.
Since we're talking about entertainment only, I guess I better entertain some people.
The WWE, we're World Podcasting Entertainment. What says the only thing more toxic than lithium is my ex? James Luttrell is absolutely right. Follow the money. And all of this is publicly available information if you just do a little digging. Consult the Googles or crack a book. It does not take a whole lot of searching to see which people we have elected and sent to Washington, D.C. are profiting from a certain lithium mine. Patty says a hell of a lot of dots. Dusty Roads polka dots.
That's right. All them polka dots that I used to wear in the ring, that's all the dots that we connecting, basically. Hard times, Jack. Hard times.
I don't know if we should keep going down this rabbit hole or not.
Bigfoot and Dogman, basically.
To be completely honest, I'm getting to a point where I'm a little worried that we might either get one demonetized or knocked off YouTube.
Or
knock at the door.
Nobody's here.
Again, this is for entertainment purposes only for whoever is listening. We're getting in an area that channels get demonetized over.
Yep. House sent me a message today. He sent it to you.
Me too.
Mm-hmm. I was like, okay. Thanks, buddy. Appreciate it. Nice for the heads up.
My nephew Randy is in the chat. He says, rumor has it that a recently pardoned dot is connected to the Windyville dot, which is speculated as to why it got burnt down during an investigation.
Dot. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Got in the flow of it.
Another one of those things that makes you go, And there we go. Thank you, Sonia. We'll put that up as a disclaimer. Please note this channel is for entertainment purposes only. Please take any opinions that we have as strictly that, our opinions. And you feel free to fact check and do your own research. The information is publicly available and form your own opinions.
The first time I heard Jessica say that about entertainment, I was like, what is she doing? Now I know what she's doing.
Yeah.
She does it like multiple times throughout the show. I
think we cracked that rock layer.
Last time I was on a show, we got talking about stuff like this, and like every 5 seconds, Jessica just kept saying that. I'm like, what is she doing? And now I know. So, like I said, hard times, Jack, hard times.
Camo Dad says you should avoid straight line lightning as well. Yeah, avoid the straight line lightning.
I try to avoid all lightning.
And perhaps invest in some blue shingles. Don't know. Just the pretty color. Don Donaldson says chronic wasting disease was first found in the late 60s at a wildlife research center in Mule Deer. I didn't know that, but as a kid going deer hunting, hell, Randy and I used to go deer hunting together. I never even heard of chronic wasting disease until just within the last couple of decades. I mean, we heard of mad cow disease. Well, mad cow hit what in the 80s or the 90s?
80s, I think.
I think it was late 80s, early 90s that we had the mad cow scare. And mad cow is just a prion disease, which is exactly what chronic wasting disease. It's a prion disease, and it can transfer to humans, which is why it's so dangerous to eat deer that are infected or possibly infected by chronic wasting. Although there are test kits you can buy and keep in your house. If you're a deer hunter, most check-in stations here in the United States, well, here in Missouri anyway, I know here in Missouri, if you check in a deer, they check it for chronic wasting. But you can buy kits to keep with your hunting gear where you can test the deer yourself. And I think they're I want to say in the ballpark of about $20 per kit. And $20 is a small price to pay not to get a freaking prion disease.
Northwoods again. Oh, when he's on, he's on.
He's on a roll tonight. Lisa Smith says, it just rolled up. I was born and live in Norfolk, Virginia, and I would rather have cryptids than those L places. I don't blame you. Though, when they start that mining process for lithium, it is going to be horrible for the environment everywhere it's done. And those lithium batteries have to be disposed of. They're hazardous waste. When you finally, let's say you bought a brand new Ford pickup in 1970 and you drove that sucker until the wheels fell off. It's all metal. It can be recycled. But one of those like a Prius with one of those lithium batteries in it, you cannot recycle those batteries. Those batteries have to be treated as toxic waste. And if you have that Prius till that battery stops holding a charge, it's like $20,000 to replace the battery. I can rebuild an engine for less than $3,000. Hell, I could buy a crate engine for $3,000 to $5,000. Says there's no disposable for lithium. So it's hazardous waste. It is not a viable solution. It really is not. That's why I don't want one of those vehicles, because when something goes wrong with them, if you've got to replace that battery, it's going to cost you as much as the car.
Yeah, we got a police department around here that's got a Tesla. And I'm like, and I know somebody who actually worked for that police department at one time, and that was their car. And it had to go in the shop one time for something routine, something that would have cost my Dodge Charger. It would have cost like $167, and it was like $80,000. Good God.
Camo Dad says $23,000 for a battery. I had a friend had that happen. That's insane.
Yeah.
Once again, entertainment purposes only. The Final Countdown. Fantastic movie.
Great movie. Great movie. Let's talk about that movie.
Let's talk about the F-14. What a combat jet.
Splash the zeros. I say again, splash
the zeros. Yeah, they had to basically hit stall speed to engage those things.
Your name just Chester Nimitz?
My nephew, this is my nephew Randy here. He's only like 2 years younger than me. He's not very much younger than me. He's a firefighter, has been since God was a corporal. He's pain in the butt to put out when they catch fire. Better off just burying them. Yeah, that's from a firefighter, folks. When those electric vehicles catch fire, yeah, it is bad. Because those batteries, well, take a look at some of the videos on YouTube of people that will puncture the lithium battery on a cell phone. The cell phone explodes, and that's just a little bitty battery. Cell phone catches fire and explodes. Now imagine that, a battery that weighs a ton. Camo Dad says, good thing that Tomcat didn't run on lithium batteries. David By says, and you can't get the battery wet. Yeah. Lithium explodes when it gets wet. Robbie? Hold on to your hats. Mad cow disease was first diagnosed by the USDA in 2003.
For entertainment purposes only, the plot thickens.
Brenda Senning says, that's insane. The battery is $23,000. I heard the electric cars don't do well in cold northern states either, and you can't take them through a car wash. Cold weather will kill a battery fast. Ask anybody that's had a diesel vehicle and left it without the block heater charged. Ask them what happens to their battery.
Yeah.
Camo Dad says, how do you think the Israelis set off pagers and cell phones? And I will be willing to bet. Now, this is purely my opinion. For speculation purposes, I could be 100% wrong. But we've got a pretty good track record, don't we, Robbie? I could be 100% wrong on this, but how the Israelis were doing that is everything has what's called a resonance frequency. And a sonic beam at the right frequency will detonate those batteries. And I guarantee you that's how they did it.
Yeah.
They used high energy sonics to detonate those pagers and cell phones. That would be my guess. I'm not a scientist. I'm not an expert on anything. I make no claims of being an expert. But if I had to guess, that would be my number 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 choice on how they did it. Why it gives us a disclaimer once more. Maybe we ought to put that on the ticker at the top.
Yeah. And find out you can keep imagining, because that's all that is going to be, imagining me in one of them cars, because you ain't getting me in one of them dang electric cars.
Got a super chat from from Josh Dalton. Josh says, when in 63 was the Enterprise experiment? All I know is Uncle Owen told me it happened in 1963. I don't know what month it happened. And when I Googled Werner von Braun and USS Enterprise, I have Googled a lot of crap in my time. I research stuff for books constantly. And Robbie, if you were to Google something that just doesn't happen, what does Google usually say?
Did you mean?
They would say, did you mean, or it comes back with no connection, right?
Yeah.
Let me read you. I will Google it again. And I will read you exactly when I Google Werner von Braun, USS Enterprise. This is exactly what it says. Werner von Braun was a German engineer who played a prominent role in rocketry and space exploration, including at NASA. He was not involved in the USS Enterprise project.
For entertainment purposes only.
Entertainment purposes only, folks.
I mean, you know, sometimes it's funny.
I just said, when was Werner von Braun on the USS Enterprise? And now it directly says Werner von Braun was never on the USS Enterprise. And I know for a fact he was, because my Uncle Owen shook his hand.
Like I said, at some points things like this are funny, but it gets to a point where it's just like, damn, it's not funny anymore.
This directly says was never on Enterprise. It doesn't just say, doesn't return no results returned. It doesn't say anything like that, like it normally does when you Google something that you can't find. It just no results found, or no hits found, or did you mean this? No, it doesn't say that. It directly says Werner von Braun was never on the USS Enterprise. Why would it know that?
Because it's the Googles.
Why would it know
the Googles
who was on Enterprise?
Because the Googles knows all.
Just yeah, Arlen Neal. Guess who? Kennedy was shot in '63.
I didn't even think about that, but yeah. Because my mom was
Vicky says, "Oh heck, they done got your phone tapped." The phone's listening to us anyway, so
oh yeah,
not shocked.
These things, if you don't think that they listen to you,
dude, look what Northwest said. Pictures were taken of him on the Enterprise, on the deck, and in the navigation cabin. Yet Google is telling me word for word, verbatim, Werner von Braun was never on USS Enterprise.
For entertainment purposes only.
Dude, okay, my mind is officially freaking blown. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to edit something right now. Where's that?
Do my voice for commercials. This show and the opinions of DA and Robbie are for entertainment purposes only. They do not reflect.
No kidding. Where's the tickers?
Are you going to do it?
I'm literally going to do it right now. If I can find it. There we go. Okay, I got it.
So, Bigfoot and Dogman are like cryptids and stuff?
Stop. Just updated it. That is going to go. That's going to go across the top from now on.
Entertainment purposes only.
Yeah, I can't believe Google just straight up says he was never on Enterprise. And yet we know for a fact he was. To me, that lends credence that it happened. To me, that just tells me that's a direct attempt for disinformation, so you don't believe the incident ever happened. When me and Noah make the new intro and outro, this show is for entertainment purposes only is going to be part of the intro and outro from now on too. Oh.
I'm just seeing what it says on mine.
Mode says they don't have a clue about who was on ships due to the fire that burned all the records. Yeah, but Google definitively says Werner von Braun was never on USS Enterprise. Show you. Watch this. Let me share my screen. So show you it's not just me reading that off. This is. There we go. I thought I froze up. See that? Werner von Braun was never on the USS Enterprise.
Yeah, it said I searched it a little bit differently on the question. I said, when was Werner von Braun on the USS Enterprise? And it said, Werner von Braun was not on the USS Enterprise, but he was a prominent figure in the North American space program and rocketry.
Mm-hmm. He was a physicist. Yep, that is staying on that ticker. Please like, share, and subscribe. Don't forget to hit that bell icon. This show is for entertainment purposes only.
We just speaking, if you will, about stuff that's kind of entertainment like and such.
I state for the record, Robbie and I have no plans on disappearing anytime soon. And to those of you fellows in the unmarked black van across the street from my house. Question everything, folks. Do your own research. Don't take anything our media, including Google, has to say don't take that as gospel. Do your own research. Look at the data. Do your own reading. And the stuff that we're finding and bringing to you guys is just stuff we've searched ourselves. It's not like either of us are big time scientists with unlimited budget. This is what we found, not only searching the web, but reading in books and talking to people. This information's all out there. David Phil says, "Hey, DA, what color's your roof?" Well, it ain't blue, so that might not be a good idea. Looks like I better get some paint.
I'm about to say, I wonder how much spray paint I got. Be up on the roof tomorrow.
Go over to Lowe's. Yeah, can I get like 25 gallons of blue paint? I'm painting the yard. I'm painting the shed. John A says hello from Bundaberg, Australia. Hey, John. G'day. Lyle, they're already back. That happens in Heart of Iron. If you haven't had a chance to read Heart of Iron, check it out.
Pretty good book. If I do say so myself.
Well, since we got 20 minutes remaining and I don't want to get shot, how about we talk about the books for a few minutes?
On me.
Rhonda says, why blue paint? Because according to... Okay, again, entertainment purposes only. According to popular conspiracy theory, which is backed up with video, but it's still conspiracy theory, when the fires hit Maui, it only burned houses that didn't have blue roofs. There were a number of houses that had blue roofs that were completely untouched. And those houses also happened to belong to very, very wealthy citizens. Let's just put it that way.
Yep.
For those of you who are unfamiliar, I am in the process of writing another book. It's a Dark Frontiers book, but it also involves Rocky and Mel from the short story, the Monster Panabates Creek, the Rocky and Mel story. I couldn't even for the life of me remember what the name of that short story was. It's in my most recent short story compilation book. It is out, but it's called Deathstalks Moon Valley. Stories in there.
Yeah, we read it a couple about last month. I think it was like
we read it on one of the campfire tales, but they're back in this book.
Oh, I thought you fucked up for a second.
Yeah.
I was like, oh crap, it's starting.
Yeah. That book is, I'm at about, what was it, almost just shy of 45,000 words now, Robbie?
Yeah.
Which means I'm well over halfway done.
145 pages, I think, right now.
If I can keep cranking the way I'm cranking now, I hope to have it done before the end of the year. Aaron Polden says Rocky's going to be a fan favorite. For those of you who are members of the Patreon, I have the first couple chapters of that book up, and since I've progressed quite a bit, I may go ahead and put up one more chapter for everybody on the Patreon. It's been a little bit since I put anything up. I haven't been working on my short stories as much. Actually, this one, it's called the Demon of Paladuro Canyon, was supposed to be a short story, but it just kind of took on a life of its own. And Robbie can tell you, and any of the alpha readers that are in the chat, that there is no way this could have been a short story.
Nah. Yeah, that's me and Doc was talking about that the other day. As a matter of fact, I was like, I see why this could not have been a short story. Doc's like, I know, right?
It is full of action and intrigue and.
Well, if the story was the same from the time you started it, there's no way you could have told the story that you wanted to tell and kept it in short story range. There was just no way. There's just
because it was too big a story to tell.
You're 145 pages in and you're barely at halfway, like you said.
Just Ryan had a good comment here. Entertainment purposes only. So I worked on the design construction industry. I'm going to specify blue roofs for houses we build in the fire buffer zones now. Things that make you go,
So anyway, there's these books that DA writes.
Yeah. I write fiction, folks. I write fiction. And Sonia says, no way this could have been a short story. It would have been an injustice. Sonia is one of the alpha readers. Miss Lene is one of the alpha readers. David By, who's in the chat, is also one of the alpha readers. Sentinel, if he still listens, one of the alpha readers. You guys would like to chime in on what you guys think so far. Yeah, you guys are be more than welcome to hear what you guys think. Mrs. Moon says action, intrigue, and senseless violence. Well, not necessarily senseless, but plenty of violence.
Yeah, there's nothing senseless about it. I mean, it's always warranted and needed, at least on our side, anyway.
You know, you get to discover why Doc still avoids Slidell, Mississippi. I mean, Slidell, Louisiana.
Yeah. Yep, sure do.
I'll leave that one as a little one that we have to read it to find out.
He keeps flapping his gums. He's going to end up back one of these days.
Isabel says, "How do you become an alpha reader?" Well, I've got my alphas picked out right now, but from time to time we do either add or sometimes people they don't have time to do it anymore. So I've had the alpha readers change over the years, but I try to keep the group between 10 and 15 at any given time because any more than that gets pretty unmanageable. And the job of the alpha readers is to take the raw writing as I'm done, the rough draft. I will finish a chapter and send it to them as I work on the next chapter. So they're not getting the entire completed book to look over. They're getting it as I write it. And their job is to go and look for problems with the plot, problems with the pacing. I don't really want them to focus so much on grammar because I have a good program and an editor that will handle the grammar when I'm done. Mainly what I'm looking for is plot holes or inconsistencies or anything that will help improve the flow or the overall quality of the book. And I tell my alpha readers all the time, and I think sometimes they don't believe me, but when it comes to the books, there is zero ego involved for me. You're not going to hurt my feelings by saying, I think you need to fix this, because I, to be honest, I could get anybody to say, I like it, and that be it. But the job of the alpha readers is to say, this is what I like, this is what I don't like. I think this would look better this way. That is their sole job. And it really helps improve the book before it's even finished. So by the time I've finished writing the rough draft, I've already gotten feedback from at least a dozen of the alpha readers that I've already gone back and improved it. And it really makes the books so much better before they even go to edits.
Yeah. And there's a lot of times, and the other alpha readers can attest to this, like you'll get the first read, you'll read through it, and second, third goes by, and then maybe the fourth or fifth read, they'll throw a little thing. You might want to go back and start over, because he's gone back and, just for example, the thing that you just mentioned, that wasn't in the first 2 or 3.
No, it was not.
Because I was like, whoa, where'd that come from? That was different. But I think it was needed, because before that, it was just like, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, okay, here we go. Gone. But that added more to that scene. And I know I'm speaking around, and people are like, what are they talking about? You just got to wait and see.
So speaking of alpha readers, no prior military would call a corporal a spec 4, nor would a corporal take it in stride. Dude, when I was in the Army, pretty much anybody that was an E4 was called a spec 4. And because you almost never encountered a corporal. In fact, they almost quit using the corporal rank entirely. And about the only time you ever run into an actual corporal is assigned either to an MP battalion or a infantry unit. You won't in any of the other MOSs. You're probably never going to run into a corporal. I was a 97 Golf, and there were no corporals because we were not infantry. We were elite gathering. So, and that is just strictly from my experience, and the same thing I would have done. I would, just immediately kicked into my brain, oh, spec 4, and that's just how it is. So if your experience was different, I'm sorry, but I write from my own experience, and that's just how my brain works. I see somebody that's an E4, I just immediately mentally think spec 4 and move on. Milton Wing says, yeah, got rare, still only like a leadership role. Exactly. Most of the time, anybody that makes E4 is a spec 4. Unless they're in a leadership role, you probably don't even see the corporals. Yeah. And dude, I think, and when the whole time I was in the Army, I ran into 2.
My son was a specialist when he got out, and his next promotion, if he'd made it from specialist, would have been sergeant, because his buddy Robert went in with him, made it to his next promotion. They both got specialists at the same time. Robert hit his promotion. Kevin never went for his. Robert went to sergeant. Kevin just stayed specialist. That's what he was up until the time he got out. So
I was in the Army in the late 80s, so and it's been a minute.
Kevin's tab, and if nobody believes me, I'll walk into his room and get it, is just one rocker or one chevron with a one rocker underneath it.
That's PFC in the Army.
That's specialist.
Rocker.
Now. Well, National Guard.
Well, the sham shield.
Yeah. But his next rank,
also known as a full bird private.
Yeah. his next rank, that if he'd done what he was supposed to do, different story for a different time, and that's not for entertainment purposes, was sergeant. So point is, I don't think any branch stays the same for more than 6-7 years, and they change stuff up.
God, the army of today is a whole different world of the army when I was in. I mean, it's a world of difference. I went to basic in '88, and the army I was in was a world of difference from what my dad was in World War II.
And that's what I was about to say. I'll hear my dad and my brother talking. You know, my dad was in the Navy, my brother's in the Marine Corps now, and my dad got out in the 70s, I think. And I'll hear them talking about, and Dad be like, "Well, it was this way and this way," and my brother's like, "No, I don't know. It ain't been like that in the 15 years I've been in." And it's wild just to hear and that's within the same, basically within the same, Marines and Navy. But
here's another difference. Militant Wing says used to be had to attend PLDC for corporal, primary leadership development course. When I was in, it was ANOC and BNOC. It wasn't PLDC.
That's what I'm saying. I think they change, probably every 10 years, just for a generational type thing. Because you got somebody in and they're in for 4 years, your standard term. So you get, if somebody goes twice, 8 years, if they change stuff up, and I'm not talking about just rank structure, I'm talking about a lot of stuff in general. Because how many field manuals are there out there?
There's a field manual for literally everything in the Army. Yeah, I mean, everything from a grenade to a bullet to the Humvee to the buffer that you have to clean the hallways with.
Yeah, and
there's a field manual for literally every piece of equipment you will ever run into.
Yep, and like Militant Wing says again, and acronyms keep changing, because you were talking about terminology of Gray Lady Down. Is that still used?
I don't know. I have yet to be able to find it. Are any of y'all out there? Are you guys Navy or former Navy within the last decade or so?
I asked that question to my brother specifically for you, who is about to be a lieutenant colonel in the Marine Corps. And he was like, I don't know. As far as I know, they still use it.
Specifically, what I need to ask some questions that don't necessarily have to involve any classified information. It's just publicly available information. But I'm looking for information from submariners. I need to find somebody that served on a submarine, hopefully within the last 20 years. Sean says it's the final countdown. Neil says had about 15 manuals for my helicopter.
Yeah, so I don't think just because it was one way this time does not mean. And I can tell you that
it constantly changes.
Just from police work in 29 years, I'll hear guys talking about, oh well, when you go through the academy, this. I'm like, well, you had to do. Well, what did you have to do?
Militant Wing said he was in the Navy in the late 90s, but worked with Army a lot, all branches. Said not a submariner. Well, maybe you can answer this question. I think it was 1982, the movie came out called Gray Lady Down. And it is a fantastic movie if you've never watched it. But in the movie, that was the terminology they used when a submarine sank. Because that's what the premise of the movie. They have a nuclear submarine goes down, and it's trapped at the bottom of the ocean with a lot of the crew still alive. And in when they informed the admiral, the code name they gave him was Gray Lady Down. What I want to know is if that is still the terminology used by the Navy if we lose contact with a submarine, or if a submarine goes to the bottom and has crew members trapped because they used to use what was called the DSRV to rescue crew members.
Well, but it's just like the term broken arrow. That's got two separate meanings.
One means it's a loss of a nuclear weapon, but the term is also still used by the U.S. Army to indicate their positions being overran.
Mm-hmm. So, how do you reason out which one? I don't remember them having nuclear weapons with them. They must be being overrun.
Kevin Bode says my son was a CB. I've got a good friend, actually one of the guys that went with us into Combs Ferry, one of my lieutenants from Greene County, Alfredo Estrella. He was a CB, still is. He's in the reserves. Sonia is absolutely right. A big shout out and thank you to all of everyone who served in any capacity. Thank you guys for your service. Just Ryan says, DA, did you read Blind Man's Bluff? It doesn't sound familiar. Who's it by?
Yes, Chris. Fubar, Snafu, Tarfu,
Bohica.
Bohica, they're all still relevant. Bohica is my personal favorite.
Yeah.
I mean, really, honestly, they're all funny. They all have their legitimate purposes in the military and law enforcement lexicon, but it's just something funny about Bohica.
Yeah, that one. You know, things are truly bad when you've reached Bohica.
Yep.
Sean Collins says apparently they lost 80 nukes somewhere, which is why the drones are all over New Jersey searching for radiation signature or something of the sorts. But the military isn't going to tell us. Yeah, if that is our military, it's so classified they're never going to tell us what's going on. And we're, to be honest, probably better off not knowing. So Wink says I could easily see them using a code like Gray Lady Down, like Robbie said, Broken Arrow. All the commands know it. That's kind of what I'm thinking. And you can't copyright a title, so I'm going to use the term Gray Lady Down, even though that movie came out, and I want to say it was like 1982 when that movie came out. And if you guys have not seen Gray Lady Down, that is a fantastic movie. In fact, I was told at one time it was required watching for anybody that was going to submarine school. Yeah, David By says Bohica means the big green weenie is coming again. It stands literally bend over, here it comes again. Patty, that's funny. She says, this channel is for entertainment purposes only. Any and all facts are merely coincidental.
Yep. Well, would you look at that? We actually spouted out a fact. We didn't mean to, but we did.
Milton Wing says he saw it years ago. That is a good movie. It is a really good movie.
Yep.
But the only similarities between that movie and my next Wild Hunt book is the submarine features in both. That's pretty much where the similarities begin and end. Well, anyway, tomorrow night we'll be doing part 2 of Ragnarok Rising Crucible, and that'll start at the usual time at 8 p.m., just like we did tonight. So we'll be back with the Redneck Reading Association tomorrow night.
I think
as for Wednesday night, since that is Christmas night, I've got to check with the boss in the other room to make sure we don't have plans. So tentatively right now, I'm going to say we probably won't have a show Wednesday night. But if we're going to be home and nothing's going on, I might anyway. It'll also depend on what Robbie and everybody else is doing too. It is, after all, Christmas night. So I'm going to say right now, as far as a show on Wednesday, maybe. I'll talk to the boys and talk to the boss in the other room and see what everybody's got going on. We may or may not have one Wednesday, but we will definitely have a Redneck Reading Association night tomorrow night. The Campfire Tales will return. Just a guy says, DA, regarding Wednesday's show, were you able to ask your brother if you ever heard anything coming from the trailers he transported or indications it might have been soundproof? I haven't had a chance to talk to him yet. We don't chat often, but I will reach out to him and see what I can find out. Jeff Yarrington says they're having a show Tuesday if anyone's bored on Christmas Eve. Yeah, Tuesday night the folks over at
Old Line
Cryptids.
Old Line Cryptids.
Old Line Cryptids. I just had a complete brain fart. I'm sorry, Jeff. Old Line Cryptids is having a show Tuesday night, so make sure head over to Old Line Cryptids here on YouTube. Give them a like and subscribe, and check them out on Tuesday night. Roxanne says the RRA Club. Well, folks, I'm going to make sure that the bush in the front yard has a cup of coffee before he changes shifts, and I think we're going to start winding things down. And again, entertainment purposes only. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Any facts are purely coincidental. And again, do your own research, folks. A lot of this stuff is public information. And what we found tonight, connecting those dots, is, well, I think it's about as mind-blowing as the other night when we connected a lot of the dots on just how much undeveloped government land is out there.
Yeah. Dot connecting has become our specialty here lately.
It certainly has. We've been running crazy with that. The dominoes are falling. Don Donaldson says, Jeff, what time Tuesday night? Yeah, Jeff, what time are you guys going live Tuesday?
8 Eastern.
8 Eastern, so that'd be 7 Central. All right, I guess we'll start winding things down. But again, this is just food for thought, folks, for entertainment purposes only. Hope you guys enjoyed these weird, crazy, tangential thoughts we've had. But I think that there's a little too much there to just ignore. And especially when you saw the weird technological things that were literally happening every 20 years, and they connect. So use your own research. Make your own decisions. Connect the dots for yourself. Take a look at it and see if 1 and 1 adds up to more than 2. But I hope you guys have. If we don't come back on Wednesday, hope everybody has an amazing holiday. Whether you celebrate Christmas or Hanukkah or whatever holiday you celebrate, I hope you guys have a wonderful one that it's full of family, feast, and love. And I hope you guys have an amazing holiday week. We will be back with you guys tomorrow night for the Redneck Reading Hour Campfire Tales. And again, I want to mention that especially with this time of year being holidays, check on your veteran friends. We lose 22 veterans a day to suicide. That is 22 a day, and that is entirely too many. Reach out to your friends and family who have served in any capacity, especially people that that have seen combat. But everybody, the phrase, all some gave all gave some and some gave all is a fact. But reach out to anybody, even first responders, people that have served and have seen horrible things. Check on them during these holiday seasons, because holidays tough on a lot of folks. And let's try our best to see if we can get 22 a day down to 0. So reach out to those folks you care about, especially this holiday season. And for all y'all out there who have difficulties going on in your lives, I know we're all having a rough time of it. Especially this year. We'll be praying for all of you, and we hope that 2025 is a much better year for all of us. And we'll just be kind to your fellow man. And it's not just for the season; it's just there's just not enough kindness in this world, and you never know the struggle people are going through. And for those of you who are struggling, don't let the hard days win, because it's not as bad as you think, and there are people out there who care. If you follow me on Facebook, I just posted a list of phone numbers on there. If any of those will help you, please use them. There is no stigma. It doesn't mean you're weak that you ask for help. And that's a lesson I had to learn myself. So just because you need help doesn't mean you're weak. It doesn't mean we'll think any less of you. So I'd rather hear your story than read your obituary. Check those lines out. Reach out to your family and friends that have served in any capacity. Reach out to any of your loved ones you think might be having a hard time this holiday season, and let them know you care about them. And we're going to close the show out with a toast. It's one we've been doing for a while, and one I'm pretty proud of. It's from an old Irish drinking song called "The Parting Glass." And it says, "But since it fell into my lot that I should rise and you should not, I'll gently rise and softly call. Good night, and joy be to you all." Good night, everyone. Slán Mat.
Slanja.
Thank you for joining us. Catch us again Wednesdays and Saturdays on DAExMachiNation. A special thanks to all our channel members and Patreon supporters. Please make sure to like, share, and subscribe.